welcome back to the Fantasy Dark Horse. Thanks for joining us again, guys, and hope everybody enjoyed Snapper. It was definitely pretty eventful. And don't forget to like and subscribe, guys. Thanks to WSL letting us put up our highlights for each of these shows. We're kind of taking liberties with that, but we're really just sharing fabulous content that doesn't really, that needs more outlets, and we're happy to provide that. But with that, Snapper Rocks was super eventful. Tons of new rookies. Showing out on the vets.
Yeah.
With John going out early in the third round. Was it third round or second round? He lost 2 consecutive heats, so second round.
He lost in the second round.
Tomas Hermes, I think, is hands down the dark horse of the event.
Well, I would argue him or Ace.
With Ace. Which, those are the 2 least owned guys for the event. And, wow, Tomas looked great. And, some guys, Julian, we were talking last show about how Julian, this is a big year for him to show up.
And he was injured. He had a shoulder injury too.
Right?
So,
how well did he surf super injured?
Yeah.
I'm sure that was super painful, but at least the waves were good, and once he got on his board, he was ripping. So
hey, if Bethany Hamilton can stand up on the board with one hand, Julian can do it at 20% injury, right? Yeah.
Seems logical.
Seems logical. So we are on the rite of passage here in Ventura, California. We just had a week of rain. The Rincon Classic actually started today. Which is unusual for this time of year because it usually happens in January or February when the waves are pumping. But we haven't had a great winter, and we were probably kind of prohibited from surfing because we had some nasty fires and mudslides and a bunch of dredging of that bacteria infested mud into our local water.
Yep. That was pretty
bad.
That
put you off from surfing?
That was about 2 months of no surfing, and then there hasn't been much swell since then, so it's pretty much been not much surfing.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can get back to that sometime soon this summer. Last summer was great, so hopefully we can have some more summer waves.
Yeah.
The last couple summers we've been getting some decent summer swells, so
I agree.
I think my biggest goal moving forward, maybe not for this year, but I got to move back to the beach. Moving a little bit inland freaking cost me a lot of sessions.
So, back to the contest. Let's talk about Snapper a little bit, just more kind of going into it. First, I think for Fantasy Surfer, a lot of people had picked Kelly Slater, like 19% of Fantasy Surfers still had Kelly Slater on their team. So Kelly Slater kind of fucked some people up.
He does this from time to time.
Yeah.
He'll just the heats start, and then they're like, yeah, Kelly didn't make it. It's like, oh hey, well, damn it.
Yeah. And you didn't pay attention in the last day or so.
I wasn't following his Twitter.
Yeah, something.
Or whatever.
I agree.
His Instagram.
And so that kind of messed people up right away. I think 72% of Fantasy Surfers had John Florence because he was just kind of the logical choice in that $12.5 to $10 million range.
Right. Even though Snapper isn't really traditionally his best event.
I agree.
Somehow. Although he is, regarded as one of the best surfers, the top 2 or 3 in the world at this point. So why wouldn't you pick him? And the price variance was $2 million max. It was the low end of the top guys, top shelf guys was it was 11, and then 12.5 for John.
Well, you had also Gabriel up there, and so you're probably you know what? If you're like me, you're super hesitant to pick goofy footers, especially if it's going to be barreling fast or if they move to Kirra, things that sometimes prove to be totally wrong.
Well, I wish I would have picked Owen or some of the good goofy footers because Owen won last year.
Yeah.
And he did well this year. He really didn't disappoint.
He was
aside
another
from
dark horse.
he made it to the quarters, right?
Yeah.
So he's still
he still performed.
The dark horse. He was the defending champion from last year.
No, for sure, but you know, with so many people coming up, and you know, and I don't know, I still have that residual Owen injured effect on his noggin, his
Right.
brain,
He looked good.
if you will.
So
And
looking back at the event,
his timing was impeccable.
it really looks like that wave was made for his style. His style of backhand is just
And
on point with that place.
I hate to even like fold right into it, but his brother Mikey, oh my god,
Mikey!
dude, like came up, like, you know what, his surfing has been there, but then his confidence in contest kind of notched up in my brain.
He looked good.
He looked good.
He was going for it, and he was pulling his maneuvers is really what it came down to. You know, he wasn't pulling those big falling out of the sky blasts. We'd
Yeah.
be saying something different, but he was going really critical and then just air dropping back down. And so he had to get rewarded, and he took out all kinds of giants, including Parco and people that are known for ripping snapper.
Yeah.
So I mean that's a big testament. But he was also owned by around 50%
Around 50%.
of everybody playing fantasy
So,
surfers. So
it's because he was worth only 1.5 million. So
Right.
you were picking between him
he fit in a lot of
and
people's
Michael
budget.
February, which nobody knew was coming in because Kelly Slater was out. And
Right.
then okay, and so yeah, that was kind of, you know, that kind of plays into, you know, how people pick their team. Like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna top load heavy, and I only have 1.5 million left. Dude, I'm gonna pick Mikey Wright in Australia at a place that he's kind of familiar with.
Yeah.
That
I
might
don't
be
know.
a given.
Did he quarter last year, or did he might have made it like a 5th round exit last year?
I don't
He
remember.
surfed well though. He did do
He
well.
surfed well, but the only, you know, honestly, in kind of my core values of picking fantasy surfer teams, it's hard for me to pick 1.5 million guys because they're facing off against the top seeds right away, and you're like, there's no way he's getting past 3rd round, you know.
Right.
So, you know.
Well, I mean, which is probably why nobody picked Tomas, dude.
Exactly.
Thomas Hermes, dude. Like, hey, look at the draw he had. If he makes his heat, he faces John. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, like. But I think he started out in the 1st round with him as well.
I don't remember, honestly, the heat draw, but I just remember Tomas owned by, what, 5%? I think 5% of all of Fantasy Surfer owned Thomas Hermes, and just did not expect him to blow up the way he did. He had super confidence for being at a contest, like on as a rookie, you know, first time, and at a place that, you know, he wasn't born surfing around, and
Right.
just, you know, put it on. You know, you kind of were all, you know, we always think of Philippe and we think of Italo, and now Thomas, you're kind of going, hey, he's going to be in that Brazil structure. I mean, for sure, we think about Gabriel Medina too, but we think about him like in a different way of like sometimes he's an asshole. That's the way I sometimes think about him. But I'm just saying, just saying, you know, like,
Right?
yeah, like when I see Philippe and all those guys super humble, and then sometimes, you know, I see Gabriel and he has a loss, and it's, you know, it's just, he's kind of like he felt like he should have been king when he didn't end up being king. I don't know.
Right?
Gives me kind of a bias.
Yeah, well, you know, he's probably come accustomed to winning. You know, he had a few years where he was killing it. He was
Yeah.
Philippe, you know. He was the Philippe, and now Philippe's in there, and he's just sticking everything. Which brings me to another point, is all those guys that we just talked about, Philippe and Italo, those guys were all like 50% owned.
Yeah, they were.
And what was it? It was John that was 71%?
John. No. Philippe was 72% owned.
70, oh yeah, Philippe.
And John was 58%.
Right. Wow. So those are a lot of guys that were on my team.
Yeah.
And a lot of them
Yeah.
didn't do super great.
And I think that's maybe critical for anybody watching us, is to say, hey, who is really most owned on your team? And if you don't have a dark horse or two on your team, you're probably not going to be moving up to the rankings because everybody owns the same team as you own. But in this last event, oh my God, almost
Especially-
everybody who freaking won was, or who got in the top 8 was a dark horse.
Yep. Then that's that second half of your team that you're putting together where you're trying to squeeze in your value guys, and really, if you would have picked well there, you would have killed it in this event.
Yeah, anybody, it kind of says two things. Anybody who has that team is going to be further ahead in the rankings than everybody else, because literally, like the 6 out of the 8 were 20% owned or less.
Right.
So that's going to be critical. But anybody that did have that team knows nothing about this contest. So there is that.
What was the percentage Julian was on? It was super low, like 13 or something. Wasn't
Yeah,
or was it
19% maybe?
19?
Something around there. It's super low.
Still
though.
super low.
And even Jordy Smith too.
Right.
Low percentage owned, below 20%.
Right.
So again, Julian who wins the contest, if you had him on your team, you're already doing better than most everybody in the Fantasy Surfing League.
No doubt.
Point. Which kind of reminds me, you and I used to be a member of the Spit, or we still are a member of the Spit Clubhouse, which is Dave Scales' clubhouse, and they were like doing wagers and stuff, but they were spending so much time on it that we've started a clubhouse on Fantasy Surfer called Fantasy Dark Horse.
Yeah. Join us in the Fantasy Dark Horse.
You can join up, and we do just like their clubhouse. Wager $10 for the men, $10 for the women, and we set the winner takes all. That's for each event. So we are kind of deciding to take up that burden and do it for ourselves. But we're also going to give you kind of cool videos to break down the events in between and give you our how you pick people.
Yep, so direct message us or whatever. Join the clubhouse. And same rules as before. You got to get your registration in before the event starts. And then may the best man win. Or woman.
You got to get your money in, and then
men and women's also.
Men and women's, and also the rule is we're not going to look through everybody's score, which was kind of killing that other clubhouse. We're just going to rely on you to come within 5 days of the contest, unless they're back-to-back contests, which are less than 5 days. Then you're going to come in and tell us your score, and we're going to pick the winner out of that. Of course, we're going to check the top 3 or 4 guys. But if you went on vacation and you happen to win the event, but you didn't come back in and check your score and post it, sorry, it went to the guy that managed to come post their score in 5 days.
So it's in your best interest to pay attention, and if you think you scored high enough to be in the, I would just say if you think you're in the top 5 or the top half of the clubhouse, just post your score. That way it's there right in front of us. We can look at it. And the proof is in the fucking pudding as it is.
Yeah. So let's talk about Bells. I think the number one thing to mention with Bells is it's Mick Fanning's last contest. He's retiring. Still in-form surfer. Still looking great. But Mick retiring. Josh Kerr retiring. Kelly looking not as great. Joel still surfing great, but not necessarily as great as some of the rookies coming on tour. That kind of senses a changing of the guard big time in this last year or two.
Things are definitely starting to have a different look to them. A lot of that old guard is definitely kind of starting to make their exodus, and which brings me back. I love to talk about Ace, man.
I was just my mind literally went there. I was like, old guard. Ace just dude. Fucking got second in a contest.
Ace is the man. He's actually looking better than I've seen him, and I think it's just that change of mentality.
8% owned by Fantasy Surfer.
He's surfing with, he's training with Micro.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, I think he's training with Micro Hall this year. And I could just see a little extra spring in his step, man. It looks great. And
unreal.
Once again, he's always the dark horse. I mean, he's always a dark horse you pick for every event.
He was like $6 million. Who's going to pick Ace at Snapper Rocks?
He's super consistent, though. He almost never goes out in the second round.
Like in 2 contests out of the year, he does that.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're getting consistency. Like, you're going to get to the 3rd. But it's expensive at 6.
Yeah. Who's doing that?
But obviously, he quarters a lot. Look where, he stays in the sweet spot of the tour every year.
He's in the sweet spot.
He's
what I would
8
call
to fucking
I would call the
14.
the Kieran Perot section of the tour, if you will, which leads me to believe that they'll eventually narrow down this tour to less than the amount of people they have currently.
Cool. So
Back to Bells.
Back to Bellsy.
Yeah. So we don't have a heat draw.
We don't have a heat draw yet. It's a close to the start time of the event, so we just want to get something out there, and you can watch the highlights behind us from last year and start to wrap your mind around the next event. With that said, Jordy Smith is defending champion from last year, and from what I remember, he smoked it. He smoked every heat he was in pretty much.
And I would think Julian is going to have mad confidence going into this event, and this is probably another event where the pace of the wave fits Julian's style. I can't deny that. Again, I got to say that about John Florence. I think John is going to be good here. I think Adriano always does
really
well there, and he's super low percentage owned guy too. So.
He always is.
Yeah, he always is, but he always is super consistent even still. Like, he always outshines his FS percentage owned.
I feel like him and, aside from this year, him and Ace have been like the two value picks for the last decade. You can get them at a reasonable rate, and they're going to give you a reasonable freaking result.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But
let's talk. Are any of the guys who did well at Snapper gonna do well at Bells? Is Thomas Hermes? Is he gonna do well there? I mean, it's a different wave. It is a different wave. It's not necessarily always as vertical. Where there have been years where you see people busting some nice airs, but it's few and far between if you looked at the past 2 decades.
Right.
It's usually more of a carving man's wave.
Right. Well, he got a lot of it done on his rail this last event. He started throwing in some airs in the later heats, but I think for the most part he was really going on his rail. But
I think Federico Moraes.
I think Federico comes to mind. He didn't look quite as sharp at Snap, but it's a faster wave, and it was kind of bumpy and jumbly. It wasn't really perfect. So, and I think his surfing really suits kind of like a nice classy wall, like anybody, but for him especially, in order for him to flow with his rail work, it's got to be a little cleaner.
Right. I agree with that, and I think even someone like Ezekiel Lau could be
I think he did well there last year, and I think he started gaining momentum through this leg of the tour, and then I had him on a couple of teams, and then following these events, he started to fizzle out a little bit, but yeah, so I'm thinking, Tomas, I'm probably gonna have to wait and see.
Yeah, me too. If I'm being honest with you guys, I really don't.
Even though he surfed phenomenal,
he surfed phenomenal.
Great.
It's just I don't know. I personally don't know enough about him to know, is he gonna be able to pick up that same style and do the same type of thing?
Right. And judging from what we saw last year, I think a Federico is a little bit more proven product at this point. Just for my comfortability, it is a lower end pick anyways, so maybe that's where you're picking a dark horse, but
you also got the fact
is he still going to be 40% owned at this event? Oh wait, no, Tomas was not.
Tomas was not.
5%.
Yeah, Tomas was super low. But at the same time, everybody probably thought the same thing as we did for rookies. Who out of the rookies are you going to pick? Michael Rodriguez seemed pretty like a legit pick. Wade Carmichael as a regular footer from Australia. But at least both of those guys maybe you would have picked over Tomas, and just because of not knowing, maybe not.
How do you feel about the young stud Griffin?
Oh wow, dude!
That guy's killing it in all sizes of waves.
Super legit, outperformed all expectations. I saw him, in our last video I told you, I watched him at the Triple Crown and was super impressed. you know, you won the Triple Crown, but you could have made, like I said, you could have made the exception that Philippe, who was doing well, decided to take off an event, and therefore he won kind of by default at the end there. But watching him,
he put together a pretty good heat though.
Holy shit, dude! His barrel technique was better than any of the locals there.
Right.
Better than anybody. Better than Parco. Better than Mick. Better than.
In multiple heats, he freaking
in
had
multiple
some drainers.
heats, he had
Set up
super
some
late
drainers.
drops under the curtain.
Straight into the pit.
Straight into the pit. Drained it.
Deep as
made
possible.
it out. Yeah, there's no denying that.
Maybe deeper than possible.
There's no denying that, but 46% of Fantasy Surfer also knew that as well.
Yeah.
So good on you guys who picked
everybody
up
was on it, you know.
Everybody was on it.
I wasn't
except
on
for me.
it. I wasn't on it.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe he's going to be on my team.
Yeah. I kind of looking at the stats for percentage owned, man. It really seems like the fantasy surf community is like on point with a lot.
For most of it.
With rookies, I mean, if you're on it with the rookies this year, I mean.
Yeah.
I think that's a big thing. I mean, we try to be on point as we can, but I missed on Tomas, I missed on Griffin, I missed on...
You had Michael Rodriguez. I was stoked with that.
Yeah, I missed on him as well. I was like, who? I don't know if I've seen him surf that much. And he definitely proved to be plenty good.
So also, so who's winning? Let's just say who's winning bells and who's the dark horse.
Well, I kind of feel like the tour got flipped upside down, like where... I mean, you still got John, you still got Philippe and those cats, but like the bottom is really looking sharp.
Yeah, but like we talked about earlier before we came on camera, is that your first 6 events are based off of your base score, which is your score from last year's event, and only 16.66% of not your base score, which is your current score, is included in that factor.
Right.
So that means for this next event, if you're a Thomas Hermes, which basically had no base score last year, and only 16.66% is your current score, you're still not moving up super high in the ranks to not be facing
still facing a top 3 guy.
Yeah, or top
3 or 4.
top 5, or whatever. Yeah, you're still facing.
Well, he was facing John this last event, so.
Okay,
I'm pretty sure.
Because it's going to be like the 1 and 2 guy. Well, yeah, because who was the champs last year? It wasn't John, so it was like Jordy. Was it Jordy facing off against the top 1, or?
Who was the champ last year?
Oh, Philippe was, right?
Was it Philippe?
I don't remember.
I already spaced it.
I spaced that. So, but you get my point. Is
no, Owen won last year.
Oh, Owen won. So that's even worse. Like Owen was facing off against the worst person, and then you get someone like Thomas Hermes facing off against, someone like John or Gabriel or Julian or any one of those, and that's going to kind of continue for 6 events, really. Which, maybe that's a different subject at a different time. Is that really fair? Like shouldn't your current score maybe kind of put you in a pole position, if you will?
It makes sense.
Maybe they do that because of the different variety of waves, and maybe you're not really justified at really facing off against your top competitors without surfing 3 or 4 different events first. I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to say.
I don't want to debate that now.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think there's probably a face of the product and stuff like that have a little bit to do with it, or some marketing aspects probably. But in any case, like, I still like to see the best surfers out there, and some of these guys have a bad last event, and they come in and freaking blow the doors off. Like John, for instance, doesn't usually do well at Snapper, but he usually does well at Bells. Like last year at Bells and Margaret's, he freaking was on fire.
Right.
So he was like the undeniable force out there. So it's kind of
hard to drop him.
You want him.
Yeah.
You don't want.
In all honesty, you're like, he's gonna drop
to the bottom.
Well, no, he's not gonna drop to the bottom.
That'd be kind of fun though, because then all of a sudden now
in fantasy surfing, it'd be worth only $3 million, which would not be realistic, and that's probably why they do it this way. But even still, he's gonna drop by maybe $1 million, I think, right? Or $500,000. I don't know how Fantasy Surfer does their rankings, but that's maybe a good value pickup. Let's
The Founders Cup.
Founders Cup. It's coming.
Speaking of Perfect Surf, as we were saying, that's going to be what, next month?
I think in May.
May? Yeah, it's March now, so
Yeah. So
next month.
April, May.
And are they gonna? What's the event right after that? Are they gonna run the actual event there too, right after?
No. Because Leemore, the event that's on contest is in September.
In September, that's
So, the Founders Cup, if you don't know, is like a test run, basically of the Olympics, but at the WSL Kelly's Surf Ranch in Leemore, California. But the way the format is going to be country by country. So they're going to have captains of each country.
I think that's rad. I mean,
cool.
it kind of, Bobby would freaking
Be pissed.
stab me for saying this, but like, it's a lot like tennis, and it's kind of cool. Like tennis has Davis Cup, and you got all these country people representing their countries instead of individuals on the regular tour. I think that's a cool aspect because it's a multi-country league. I mean, you got people from all over the world on the world tour, and I think it's only right that they represent their country.
It is right, but let's be honest with you. As non-biased individuals that we are, Brazil's going to take that down in obliterating fashion. I mean, if they have all the top guys from Brazil,
Yeah.
they're going to just decimate it.
Yeah.
I mean, Gabriel, Felipe,
I think they
Italo.
certainly have a high chance of decimating the opposition.
I mean, who else? What does Australia have now? Dude, Australia was the king of this sport forever. But if you're really thinking about who in the top 5 is your favorite Australian surfer at this point, who comes to your mind?
Owen?
Me too, Owen. But with that said, and maybe Julian. Maybe Julian. I'm going to say Julian because I still think that Julian can compete in the air with Gabriel.
Dude, he's pulled off things that none of those other guys have pulled off.
Yeah.
In contests, in heats.
So maybe Julian.
He's got
Owen,
a bag of tricks.
Owen, because he's a goofy footer, he's got great timing, he's great in the barrel, but I don't see him doing Julian or Philippe type airs anymore.
Maybe this is when a time in surfing when a guy like Julian and his innovative maneuvers that he's done in the past and not been rewarded, this is a venue where they get to start to exercise a little more free thinking, where you can pull some crazy airs no one ever has seen before, and they're actually going to score it as
I hope.
a high difficulty maneuver.
So yeah,
he's done a couple of crazy things in
venue
heats that should have just been.
Meaning Leemore.
Yeah.
And honestly, I don't know who the actual contestants are of each one. I have not looked into that. I know, I think Gabriel Medina is the captain for Brazil, but other than that, they're doing different countries. I don't know how many competitors are in each country.
Team, yeah.
How many per team? I don't know any of those statistics at this point, which I kind of wish I did to relay to our friends out there. But other than that, I don't know. So, is there anything else you want to talk about?
Shoot, man, I think we covered a lot. And I think that's probably good for now. I wish we had a heat draw. We can get into a little bit more who we think is going to win. We really didn't pick a winner.
Pick a winner right now.
I can't pick a winner.
I'm going to say John.
I'm going to have to say John just because...
That was the first person that popped in my head.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say John. I would think maybe second would be Jordy or Julian.
Okay, and then on the dark horse side, maybe a Federico Moraes.
Maybe even
Ace. Maybe a Wade Carmichael, maybe an Ace.
Because that's a slower wave that he can wind up and do freaking a million backside turns. And I think the judges have been good about getting away from really giving super high scores to super repetitive backside surfing. I do think I've seen that.
We'll see with Wilco, because Wilco's won bells.
We'll see.
Wilco's won bells in the past, so Has he? I'm pretty sure he's won.
I don't know.
I think he won bells the year before.
I'm not sure.
Didn't he win the first 2 events like the year he was going?
I think so.
Going nuts. He
Right.
won Snapper and then he won bells. Not 100% sure on that, but he won 2 of the Australian leg for sure.
Okay.
Um,
So yeah, I'm sure it was bells.
right.
But still, I mean, that brings us to the point that I do think the judging is kind of getting a little bit better about not really scoring repetitive right hands where a backsider is just doing the same exact turn over and over, and realize that the degree of difficulty for doing that is not nearly as much as on
We've
your
said this a
forehand.
few times on the show.
Yeah.
You can
we-
do vertical
Hopefully
turns
we're
on your
taking credit
backhand.
for judges changing their score, you know? But
you can do beyond vertical turns on your backside on your backhand much easier than you can trying to draw that front side whip.
and torquing out, like there's so many different ways you can torque a
A
front
backhand,
side
it's
turn.
almost automatic because you have to come back around.
You have to come back around. Like with
Front side,
with your
you're
forehand,
pulling it.
you can push your tail out and extend it more. You
Yep.
can push it out 180 or 360.
Because you're already coming back in no matter what.
You can push it over the lip on the top better than you can on your backhand.
Yeah.
So
Because it's all core front side. Front side, you got to control all this momentum that's going like out in front of your feet, where it's
your
just
backhand, you're already coming back in and using gravity.
You're using gravity to your advantage.
So we're saying this because both of us are goofy footers.
Yeah.
By the way, so we're not being like
And we grew up.
we're not
we
being
grew up
biased.
here
We're not being
around
biased to regular footers.
right hand point breaks is what we're used to out here, and by far I've done more critical turns on my backhand than I have on my front hand.
Only because of the waves we have, but you also know that whenever you do have a goofy footed spot for us, you have way more fun on that wave. You can generate way more speed. You can do all kinds of things that you can't necessarily do on your backhand. So.
True that. Remember to like and subscribe, guys. I hope you guys are enjoying the show. We're gonna keep firing at you anyway. Ha.
Yep.
Because it's fun for us. And
we use WSL bracket to run our heat draws. We always give mad thanks to those guys.
Yep.
We always give thanks to World Surfing League for tolerating us using some of their clips.
Yep. Just blatantly running your shit on our show.
Yep.
But everybody loves to see it, and so why not share it with the world?
That's it.
Yeah. See you out in the water.
See you out in the water.